Sure. Okay, sounds good. Sorry, I'm not on the clock. I don't want to stand. Do you guys want to hear about pissing or sailing? All right, for peeing, round of applause. That's fair. For sailing, round of applause. All right, it's fair. You guys aren't on the clock either. You don't got to hear about peeing. So, in 2011, I was living on a small boat. It was a Cal 25. It didn't have a motor, and I was sailing around islands in British Columbia in the winter, which I don't recommend. And I sailed with a lot of difficulty to a small island called Salt Spring, which I had been warned by people. I got like really boogeyman warnings of like, things get weird on Salt Spring Island. And I'm like, all right, well, you're all weird, and I'm living on a boat, so what does this even matter? It's Christmas Eve, and I rowed to shore on this little dinghy, and I didn't read my tide charts, which are important because it lets you know where the tides are, and I got stranded, and I can't drag my boat back out to the water to even get to my home. And I had taken laundry, which you only get once in a while, and I had dry laundry, and I had taken the battery out of my boat. That's like taking the heart out of a living animal, and I had charged it in a coffee shop inside my travel bag. And so I have a lot of very delicate stuff in this bag, and I'm dragging my boat, and a strange man, shaped sort of like a penguin, says, like, you're fucked, you're not gonna get that back out to water, just come have a drink with us, it's Christmas, Merry Christmas. And I go up, and I'm like, all right, I'm on an adventure, and I leave my boat where it is, and I go up to the only bar on this island, and he's got like a wonk eye and a patchy beard. I don't remember his name. He's got like all this gauze around one finger, and it's like wet too. And he's wearing like a velour tracksuit and like satin slippers. And so I'm like, all right, this guy's like wearing his comfort clothes for Christmas. And inside is a man who I would later find out was very tall, named Lee, whose wrist was in a cast. And these guys continued to make disgusting jokes to the bartender the whole night. And me and the bartender kept making eye contact where I was like, I'm so sorry. And she's like, I'm so sorry. And these guys were very strange. And there's like, lots of backstory about how the man with the pussy finger is actually a really amazing cook. And my mind was blown. And Lee keeps telling, I keep asking him, like, what happened to your wrist? I'm making conversation, and they keep telling me, this kid's salty, which they're like, who's rowing a boat on Christmas Eve in winter? And I'm very proud of this, even though they're very unsavory people. And Lee just says, a guy hit on my wife and I broke his face in, but I also broke my wrist. And I'm like, what a kook you are. And and every time I ask the question, he gives the same answer. And it's just less funny each time. And they're like, it's Christmas Eve, let's go out, let's have a drink. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I'm on an adventure. And I get a look, which later I recognize from the bartender is like, you're making a choice if you go out to that dock. And I just winged it. And so I went out to this dock, and they start, one of them goes into their boat and gets a six-pack, and we're drinking, and another one gets a handle of whiskey and passing it around. It's like really sugary, like shitty whiskey. And they're passing it around, and they're paying uncomfortable attention to how I drink, and I start to get a bad feeling. And every time I'm like, well, I got a lot of delicate stuff, I should really row back. They're like, oh, which boat is yours? And that's like talking to a stranger about where you live, sleep, everything. And so I'm like, oh, it's over there. And I don't want to tell them which boat is mine. And they just really watch me drink, and they watch me swallow the drink, and alarm bells start going off. And I start noticing that there's really no one else around, and like scary people, boat folk, start to come out of the boats. And they're really cartoons. They're like, there's a man named Bear, and his beard went like all around his head. His face looked like eggs in a nest. And it was really, really, and they're like, everyone's sharing the drink. And I'm like, I don't want to drink out of that bottle just because I don't know where these guys have been. And like, I don't know what I'm going to get from these strangers on this island. And I'm definitely like measuring, like, how far can I scream? Who is awake? Who is sober on Christmas Eve on this island? And who's gonna even help me? Or am I just like the latest in a list of like, wow, a fucking new kid? That like, what easy bait? I'm like having my deliverance moment. And I'm like, I'm like wondering like, wow, can I get to my boat? Can I abandon my battery? Can I abandon my dry clothes? Which is like, you can't do that. Dry clothes are life. And you know, this old man named Hurricane shows up. We know he's showing up because he's howling down the lane. Copy. And he pulls out a joint, and again, they're like, I'm getting this physical intimidation from Lee, who's very tall, I see now, and very physically aware of himself, and is swinging stuff like nunchucks. And they say they want to show me a knot called Mexican handcuffs that I have no interest in learning about. And I'm just getting more and more scared, and I'm trying to make nice conversation. And eventually it comes out that I'm an American in foreign waters. And Hurricane finds it out, and he just loses his shit. He's like, a fucking American? I can't believe I've been talking this long, all night, to a fucking American. And he's getting really angry, and I'm getting really upset, where I'm like, well, this is, if I was a tortury kind of guy, this would be the time that I guess I would spring on the new kid. And they do sort of like, they've been making motions towards me, and they're getting closer to me. And Lee, the tall one, puts his hand on the penguin-shaped guy's shoulder and goes, he's not an American, he's a Yankee. You watch the way he drinks his drink, doesn't make a change in his face. He's a Yankee, he's okay. The night went on, and I sang a sea shanty for them, and they were okay. As the night went on, Lee told me about his history studying martial arts, escaping jail, and being the last living scion of Daniel Boone. Lots of strange stuff. And I have no idea what to make of that night. Oh.